Hello, you are watching Global News. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tracy Tong.
And I'm Anthony Robart. Here are the top stories we're tracking today.
We will adapt our strategy as things evolve.
Canada commits hundreds of millions of dollars to protect aluminum and steel industries from steep U.S. tariffs and special funding for Atlantic Canadian businesses. After major backlash, Alberta rewrites its school library rules to keep classics on the shelves. Gunfire at a Jerusalem bus stop leaves 6 people dead as Israel vows to hunt down anyone connected to the attack. The federal government held an announcement Monday in Atlantic Canada, where Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled funding to help businesses on the East Coast pivot away from our southern neighbor. Heidi Petracek reports.
Together, stronger, we are building Canada strong.
With the St. John's shipyard as a backdrop, the announcement felt like a federal election campaign repeat.
We can create that rising tide that lifts all boats.
Meant to bolster national pride in the face of ongoing tariffs. Now, those sentiments coming with cash for businesses in Atlantic Canada feeling the financial pressure.
It's about getting people to work, it's about jobs, and it's about money in people's pockets.
Companies on the East Coast will be able to draw from a $1 billion tariff response fund, $80 million earmarked for a region where most exporters sell to the U.S. and where the shellfish industry is being hit with Chinese tariffs. The money meant to help firms leverage new technology and find new customers.
And for a small business in particular, these are big challenges. The key here is to make sure that money is well spent, that we target on where we can get the biggest value.
But as for who exactly will qualify and how long it will take to get funding,
the devil's going to be in the details. Are the programs going to be well adapted to the smaller types of firms? And is it going to be encompassing enough to reach the support where it needs to be?
It's all part of $5 billion in federal spending intended to soften the short-term blow of tariffs and transform the Canadian economy. Money that has to come from somewhere, Carney pointing to his first budget as Prime Minister.
Focusing on reducing waste, reducing unnecessary federal spending, reducing the duplication in federal spending.
I am willing to concede that the federal government has grown probably way too fast over the last 10 years. And that they are redundancies, but I question how this is going to take place.
Those details and that budget expected this fall. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Now, some of the highest tariffs against Canada by the United States are on the steel and aluminum industry, which stand at a staggering 50%. Well, Monday, the aluminum industry received a lifeline, with the federal government pledging hundreds of millions of dollars. This is part of a sweeping relief package announced last week. Tree Isri has the latest.
Quebec is Canada's aluminum capital, and Ottawa is vowing to fortify the industry against crushing tariffs.
It's that vision of a new industrial era that we're putting into place today.
Flanked by business leaders, Industry Minister Melanie Joly assured the sector it will receive its share of a $5 billion relief fund.
We will adapt our strategy as things evolve. We think right now it's the right strategy to have.
She did not provide an exact number, but says it will be in the hundreds of millions.
We ship 56,000 tons per week of aluminium to the U.S. 52 weeks a year. So we lost tremendous amounts of money.
On Friday, Prime Minister Mark Carney rolled out a tariff relief package.
We will build Canada strong.
Monday's announcement in Montreal is a drilling down of those measures, including the $5 billion Strategic Response Fund to help affected sectors, a Buy Canadian policy to ensure the federal government purchases domestically, immediate liquidity relief with $5 million in loans to small and medium businesses, and a regional tariff response initiative worth $1 billion over 3 years. But there's still no plan to match the Trump administration's tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum by doubling duties on the U.S. from 25% to 50%.
As the steel industry, in this desperate time, we need to tariff all American steel coming into Canada that we can produce. And we need to do that at the same level that they're tariffing us.
Joly says Canada is still focused on its immediate goal of removing the tariffs. But the series of support measures are another sign that Canada is preparing for the long-term effects of this protracted trade war. Taria Isri, Global News, Montreal.
The Alberta government is altering its controversial school book ban. The province is revising the restrictions to only include what it calls visual depictions of sexual acts. The written word will no longer be part of the bans. The move comes after Edmonton's public school board verified a list of 200 books that would need to be removed under previous measures. They included classics like Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale and Alice Walker's The Color Purple. School boards have until the end of next month to submit a list of literary materials they intend to remove. 6 people were killed in Jerusalem after 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire at a busy bus stop. The gunmen were also shot dead. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to hunt down anyone who helped them. As Redmond Shannon reports, the attack comes as Israel warns Hamas has one last chance to release the remaining hostages.
Running for their lives in morning traffic. Israeli police say 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire at a bus stop in the north of Jerusalem. At first, people did not understand what was happening until someone suddenly shouted, "Terror attack," and people started running, says this man. A soldier and armed civilians acted quickly to kill the attackers, but not before commuters were killed. A pregnant woman was among the injured. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the scene and promised a response. He said Israeli forces have surrounded the West Bank villages where the attackers came from and will apprehend anyone who helped them. Attacks like this in fortified Jerusalem are not as common as they once were. A rabbi among the victims mourned in the capital Monday. Killings of innocents are, however, a daily event in Gaza. These sisters, aged 5 and 2, dead after what medics say was an Israeli airstrike on a tent. More and more people in Gaza City will have to live in tents after Israel destroyed another large building, this time giving residents 3 hours' notice. Netanyahu calls them terror towers. Regardless of whether they were used by Hamas, their destruction makes Gaza City even less livable as Israeli troops move to occupy all of the city and force its residents out, ignoring international calls to stop.
Israel has a case to answer before the International Court of Justice, and the evidence continues to mount.
The latest US proposal to end the war matches Israel's demand that Hamas release all remaining hostages. Last month, the militant group had proposed a partial release. Hamas says of the US plan that it is prepared to negotiate. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Emergency responders say the death toll has risen following the largest attack on Ukraine since Russia invaded back in 2022. Now, Western nations have said they will further target Moscow with new sanctions. But as Reggie Cicchini explains, the Kremlin doesn't seem to be fazed and is all but brushing off this threat.
It was the darkest night for Ukrainians in more than 3 years. More than 800 drones and decoys were launched Saturday night, destroying more than just infrastructure. A mother and her child died in the attack, and on Monday, the body of a third person was found in the rubble of a 9-story building.
The long-established rules of war are being shredded.
This is a clear sign that Putin is testing the world, Volodymyr Zelenskyy said late Sunday. European diplomats were back in the American capital by Monday with a plan for a 19th round of sanctions against Moscow. No sanctions will ever be able to force Russia to change the consistent position that our president has repeatedly spoken about, Putin's spokesperson said.
No new round of sanctions is going to make any significant difference until we start really enforcing and cracking down on the ones that we have.
Donald Trump thought his relationship with Putin would be enough to get a ceasefire. He misread his Russian counterpart, however, and Ukraine is bearing the cost, while Putin takes more rope.
We'll see what happens over the next week or two.
What are the 2 ways you can go at the end of 2 weeks then?
Well, then I'm going to make a decision as to what we do. 10 or 12 days from today. I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. We'll see what we're going to do.
It's never good to set a deadline or a red line and not make it, right? So I think that this is a serious credibility problem for the United States right now, and the Trump administration has compounded it.
Amid shape-shifting deadlines, Trump is set to speak with Putin again, while also placing the burden on other countries to pull back on Russian oil purchases.
We are actually also indirectly helping finance Putin's war, and that needs to stop.
As the U.S. moves towards a relatively obscure Phase 2, the rest of the West is crafting plans to further weaken Russia's effort if possible, with no one sure what will run out of steam first, Moscow's economy or Ukraine's military. Reggie Cecchini, Global News, Washington.
At least 19